Hello and welcome to CadenCenter. It's time for another This Week in Sports. Today I'll be talking about the chaos so far that has been the NBA offseason in regards to free agency, trades, and the draft. I'm going to be breaking what has happened so far all down in order that it's happened too, because a lot going on, so we need to keep it somewhat organized. And the first big domino to fall for this offseason was the Bradley Beal trade, where Bradley Beal, Jordan Goodwin, and Isaiah Todd were sent to the Suns in exchange for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, six second-round picks and 4 first-round pick swaps. For the Suns, it's new big three of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. There's a lot of scoring there. There's certainly a lack of defense. And after this trade, I thought, okay, maybe we're going to see DeAndre Ayton moved as well so the team can have some depth. They decided not to do that. They have signed some players in free agency I'll talk about a little later that bolsters their depth. But I think this certainly will be interesting. For Bradley Beal, it is nice to see him get out of that situation with Washington. This is a guy who was a couple years ago averaging 30 points a game and getting almost no recognition because he was playing for a team that no one really cared about. Now he gets a chance in the spotlight to perform. We'll see how he does, and we'll see how the Suns do. But moving to another contender, but over in the Eastern Conference making a big trade, it was the Celtics landing Kristaps Porzingis, pick 25 and a 21st round pick for Tyus Jones, the 35th pick, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, who were sent to the Wizards, and then Marcus Smart was sent to Memphis. 3-team deal. There was another deal in place where Porzingis was going somewhere else. Then it came to this. For the Celtics to get rid of Marcus Smart, it certainly is interesting. He's the backbone of that team. I don't really know about this fit with Porzingis. They already have Al Horford, who I know is aging, and Robert Williams, who I know is injury-prone. But assuming they're all healthy, which I'm sure they want, I'm not really sure how you fit them in there. Porzingis is a known shot chucker, and I don't know if you want him taking shots away from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in the clutch moments. So I think it'll take a while for them to mold together, but on paper, they're still a very good team. As for how the trade goes for Memphis, Ja Morant's going to be out due to his suspension for the first little chunk of the season, so Marcus Smart will probably be asked to do a little bit on offense. Then when Ja comes back, we can see Ja and Marcus Smart, point guard, shooting guard combo, and we'll see how they can do. That's an athletic group, a group that could do well on defense. Marcus Smart doesn't really fix the Grizzlies' shooting woes, but he does give them defense they lose with Dylan Brooks, who is going to the Rockets. I'll talk about that a little later as well. And the last trade before the draft began was Chris Paul going to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole, Patrick Baldwin Jr., Ryan Rollins, a 2030 first-round pick, and a 2027 second-round pick. And we all thought that Chris Paul was going to get bought out. He was going to head to free agency. He wasn't going to get dealt. But a deal popped up here for the Wizards with Jordan Poole, and we know Jordan Poole performed terribly in the playoffs, especially in that series against the Lakers. And I guess they decided it was time to move on despite paying him all that big money. I imagine Chris Paul will come off the bench. I don't think the Warriors are going to run a small ball lineup the entire season of Steph, CP3, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond. I think in the playoffs maybe that'll be possible, but I think the goal for them is preserve CP3 because we know his body's worn down the past couple playoff runs. Preserve him, put him off the bench, maybe he can be a 6th man of the year candidate, and then when the time comes, his legs will be fresh enough, because we know he's pretty old now, to be productive in the playoffs. And then after those trades to start off the wild off season, we had the draft. I have some notable draft picks and undrafted signings I just want to go through, talk about the impact that it'll have on these teams. The first one, obviously, Victor Wembanyama to the Spurs. Not much else to say about Victor Wembanyama that hasn't been said. He has the ceiling to be the #1 player in the league. There are some concerns about his strength and stuff like that, but this guy obviously could be a generational talent, probably the most high prospect since LeBron James. It'll be interesting to see what he does in the Summer League, in Las Vegas, in the California Classic, as well as during the regular season. The second pick, the Hornets went with Brandon Miller. I disagree. I think they should have went with Scoot Henderson, who went to the Blazers. I understand they already have LaMelo Ball, but I feel like in the NBA, especially with the draft, you pick talent over fit. It's positionless basketball. You can figure it out. I think the Hornets will come to regret this. Brandon Miller, he does come with some baggage. We all know what happened in Alabama, where he was involved with that shooting and stuff. So I think Scoot would have been the better pick. But Scoot ended up going to the Blazers, who we now know are looking to trade Damian Lillard. Haven't done it yet. We'll see where he ends up going. But Scoot, along with Sharp, Simons, the Blazers team's going to be fun to watch, even though Dame will be out, and we'll see if they can speed up that rebuild. Then after those first 3 picks, we had the Thompson twins go back-to-back from Overtime Elite. I'm not too big on them because in Overtime Elite they were playing against like high school age guys, and it's not that impressive to me. But we'll see how they do. And it's tough with twins or siblings in general because we kind of mold them together. I think they're the same player, but these guys are different. I think they can affect their new teams in multiple ways. Moving on to a bit farther down the draft, we had Derek Lively go to the Mavericks. I think that was notable because the Mavericks need to figure out what's going on at center. Jason Kidd ruined any chance of getting Christian Wood back for them. Dwight Powell, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't think you're winning a championship with Dwight Powell at center. No disrespect or anything like that. So this is a good pick, and Lively will be on Luka's timeline to maybe develop with him, and I'm sure Luka will make him look pretty good. We had Keontae George go to the Utah Jazz. This guy was a stud scorer at Baylor. Some efficiency issues, but I think in Utah there are shots to get, assuming they're going to be tanking. I don't think they're going to make a play and push this year, so I'm interested to see how he develops. We have, of course, a personal pick that I wanted to put, Jalen Hood-Schifino to my Lakers. Not exactly the pick I expected. I expected more of a plug-and-play now guy rather than a little bit of a project. He has to work on his jumper. But he certainly does have the size to excel at the NBA level, but I think he's going to take some time to develop. Another big story was Cam Whitmore falling to the Rockets at 20. This guy was projected to be a top 5 talent, but he did have some injury issues in college, and apparently in this drill, there was a pick and roll. The percentage of times he passed were the least out of all the workouts for a certain team. Not sure which team they'll work out for. He also has some attitude issues. He wouldn't stay in a defensive stance once he got rid of the ball. So it seems like it's more off the court than on the court. On the court, we know he is very good. And I'm not sure if the Rockets is a great situation for a guy struggling off the court because they're already so young and they lack some veterans. We'll see how that works out. We had Chris Murray, Keegan's brother, going to the Blazers. I think, like Keegan, Chris will be a plug-and-play guy for the Blazers in the rebuild. He'll get big minutes early. Maxwell Lewis in the second round went to the Lakers. This was a type of pick I expect the Lakers to do, a guy who can be plug-and-play, maybe not this year, but very soon, sooner than maybe Jalen Hood-Schifino. 3-and-D wing from Pepperdine, so I'm sure the Lakers got a lot of scouting given he was from the West Coast. It's an interesting pick there. We got a couple of high school viral guys getting picked as well. Amari Bailey going to the Hornets to team up with another guy who was big in high school, LaMelo Ball. Amani Bates was the #1 high school recruit for his class. Remember, he went to Michigan State, Memphis, Eastern Michigan last year. They won like 13 games. He was chucking up a lot of shots, though, and making some. He went to the Cavs. One of the best actually the best story in all of the draft is Keontae Johnson getting drafted by Oklahoma City Thunder after he collapsed at Florida a few years ago in the middle of a game. He comes back, balls out of Kansas State, earns a job in the NBA. I know everyone will be rooting for him. We had Jalen Wilson go to the Nets. This guy led the Big 12 in rebounding. He was a Big 12 Player of the Year, and he scored 20 points a game. The Nets, obviously, we know they have Nick Claxton, but Nick has some certain struggles that may prevent him from being their long-term guy when they start winning. So Jalen is an interesting pick. A couple sleeper picks here to cap it off. Jalen Clark, he was UCLA before he injured for March Madness. He has the potential to be a really good defender, and I think UCLA would have went a little farther in the tournament if he was healthy. Trace Jackson Davis tweeted that everyone was going to regret passing on him, and then the Warriors took him. He was a pretty good. He was actually the star of Indiana last year, but the problem is he did not attempt a three. I think in his college career, especially not last year, and you're not able to space the floor. He's not exactly big either. He's a little bit undersized for center, so Golden State, they need a backup center. Maybe he'll be their guy. We'll see. And something that a lot of people, I'm sure, dislike is Chris Livingston going to the Bucks, which I believe he was the last pick of the draft. He and his agent apparently have been calling teams, telling them to not pick him because he had a prearranged deal with the Bucks. And you may say, what's the point of a draft if we're all prearranging where we're going to go? But he's going there. We know Rich Paul. He can pull a lot of strings. He can get things like this done. So that wrapped up the draft. And then, of course, after the draft, we had a lot of guys who were undrafted but still notable get signed to Exhibition 10, summer league deals, stuff like that. Some of those guys include Marquise Noel with the Raptors getting a two-way deal. Remember, he set the NCAA tournament single game record with I think 18 assists. Colin Castleton signed with the Lakers. He's a very good passer for a big man. We know passing big men are probably pretty big now. Nikola Jokic helping raise their stock. So we'll see what can happen with that. The Lakers, pretty good at developing players. Antoine Davis, you may remember him because he came just a few points shy of breaking Pistol Pete Maravich's record for most points all time in the NCAA. He signed with the Blazers on an Exhibit 10 deal. Drew Timme, Gonzaga legend, signed with the Bucks. Drew Peterson out of USC signed with the Heat, and we know when the Heat sign a guy on a contract like this, they might develop him. He might be good. Peterson, 6'9", with guard skills. He certainly has the potential to do that. Former National Player of the Year Oscar Tshiebwe signed a 2-year deal with the Pacers, and that was all of the notable draft and undrafted free agents for me. What was an interesting class to say the least, and a class that have a good big impact, not just with Victor Wembanyama, but with some of the other later guys that I mentioned. And now we are back to trade season and free agency season, which has been happening the past couple of days. And the first thing to really happen was John Collins getting traded to the Jazz for Rudy Gay and a second-round pick. John Collins' value has fallen off a cliff since the 2021 Eastern Conference Final run the Hawks had. We thought, oh yeah, Trae Young and John Collins, this lob threat duo, going to be dangerous in the East. Nope. This is basically a salary dump for the next few years for the Hawks, and the Jazz just took them on. And the Jazz are going to be a big team next year. When Larry Markkinen might be back running the three with some guys that they are trading for. And then we finally got time, or it was finally that time for teams to start signing players in free agency. And we had Drew Eubanks go to the Suns. Now, Drew Eubanks, not really a big impact player. Maybe asking why I'm pointing him out. But every player the Suns sign is important because these guys need depth, and they need it badly to surround, like I said, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton, etc. So anybody they get that turns out good will be very necessary if they want to win a championship. Taurean Prince signed with the Lakers, 1 year, $4.5 million deal. And then Troy Brown actually went to the Wolves. So it's almost like they swapped wings there. Taurean, perfect fit for the Lakers. 3-and-D, it's what they need. We got our first big bag, maybe overpay, some will say, with Bruce Brown going to the Pacers on a 2-year, $45 million deal. Now, if you're a box score watcher, you think he's overpaid. If you're not a box score watcher, you actually watch the games to understand what's happening, you could try to justify it. I didn't expect over $22 million a year for Bruce Brown, but I did expect a lot. This guy can literally play 1 through 4, though, and the Pacers are a young team. We have to remember the Pacers were in the play-in 7-6 seed, I think maybe the 5 seed range before Tyrese Halliburton went down. So I'm expecting them to make a push for the play-in playoffs, and hey, they wouldn't be fun to face in the first round with Tyrese Halliburton and the experience of Bruce Brown, obviously Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, the other guys they have there. The Suns continue to be active early, signing Keita Bates-Diop, who has had a couple of games where it's like, whoa, this guy is good. I'm sure the Suns will be hoping he has more. That's a 2-year, $5 million deal. We saw Max Strus go to the Cavs, 4-year, $64 million deal. Then we found out it's a sign-and-trade because the Heat would get a second-round pick, and then the Spurs came as a third team. We got Cedi Osman, Lamar Stevens, and a second-round pick. Strus, obviously a big part of that Heat culture and their finals run last year. That's a big hit. Javon Carter went to the Bulls, 3 year, $20 million. The Chicago conspiracy continues. The Chicago Bulls seem to always have one player from Chicago on their roster, and Javon Carter will continue that. His ability to shoot the 3 ball is really shown when Giannis and Middleton were missing time last year in Milwaukee, so I'm sure the Bulls were hoping, obviously with Lonzo Ball being out, that he can help fill those point guard minutes. We saw George Niang go to the Cavs, 3 year, $26 million deal. George Niang is not worth $26 million, but the Cavs were struggling with that backup 4 spot in the playoffs, playing like Dean Wade, and it really hurt them. So maybe they were just like, hey, maybe this guy can shoot 40% from 3. He was doing it in Philly. We can survive with him. We saw Joe Ingles go to the very young Magic team to be their vet, I guess. I thought at this point Joe would try to go to more win-now team, but he does get $11 million a year. So good for him, I guess. The Magic are another team who were, I think they won 34, 35 games. They weren't that far out of the play-in, so Paulo Banchero can elevate his game again. Anthony Black maybe can contribute. Maybe they trade Suggs or Cole Anthony, one of the a million point guards they have. They can make something happen. And then the Lakers made another signing, getting Gabe Vincent with their mid-level exception, 3-year, $33 million. Now, the last time the Lakers signed a Heat player was Kendrick Nunn. That turned out terrible, even though they did flip him for Rui Hachimura. Nunn was not good in LA, especially after the injuries suffered, that the worst bone bruise in human history, it felt like. So Gabe, next to LeBron, spot up, catch, shoot 40% from three. The Lakers will be happy. A big pickup for the Suns was getting Yuto Watanabe. I believe he shot like 50%, maybe higher than 50% on corner threes, and he's going to be sitting in the corner watching Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, ISO, and when that help defense comes, he'll be there to hopefully knock down some shots because the Suns did not really have that last playoff run. Shake Milton was the Wolves on a 2-year, $10 million deal. The Wolves point guard position is in complete shambles right now. So getting Shake is maybe a temporary heal for that. We know they're shopping Karl Anthony Towns, but no one really wants him between his contract, because of the size of his contract, rather, and they're stuck with Rudy Gobert. So the Wolves are just trying to make something out of nothing. The Heat did get a player to fill the role of Max Strus, who unfortunately went away. That was Josh Richardson. Definitely a guy who can see part of that Heat culture, 3-and-D, scrappy guy. Pretty good mid-range scorer. I think he'll fit in well. And a deal that the Lakers made that was really not too expected was getting Cam Reddish on a 2-year deal on a veteran minimum. Now, Cam Reddish has just not got the minutes he needs to develop and showcase his talent. But when he does get 20, 25 minutes or more a game, he actually performs pretty well. And I think alongside LeBron James, like I said, LeBron makes teammates better. He can really do something. That length will be much needed. I expect him to be in the rotation. And we know Phil Handy knows how to work with wings. We saw what he did with Rui. I expect him to do something similar with Cam Reddish. And Cam Reddish should have a breakout season in LA. And now we have another overpay, but I can somewhat justify it. It's Fred VanVleet going to Houston, 3 years, $130 million. The average annual value of this contract is higher than Fred VanVleet's field goal percentage last season, which is pretty crazy. But nonetheless, I can explain why the Rockets are paying him so much, even though he's like not that great. It's because they need to pay at least 90%, pay their players at least 90% of the salary cap, or they just forfeit their money. So that's why they're just throwing money at Fred VanVleet, because like, hey, you're basically free to us because we're not trying to pursue anyone else. They obviously couldn't get James Harden apparently. So it isn't overpaid, but Fred VanVleet is a guy who can maybe facilitate and make players like Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., the Houston youngins, more efficient, because Jalen Green running your offense hasn't gone well just the past few years. And this maybe opens an opportunity now for them to try to trade Kevin Porter Jr. and get some pieces back for him. Really, like I think an hour or two after Fred left, Masai Ujiri went and got Dennis Schroeder to replace Fred in Toronto, starting point guard, 2-year, $26 million. Obviously, Laker fan, I'm a little sad to see Dennis Schroeder go, but I can't complain given Gabe Vincent is a replacement. The Raptors seem to still be trying to do anything to not rebuild. I know there's been some rumors they're looking to make another splash in a trade. Who they're going to trade, I have no idea if Scotty Barnes is still untouchable. But yeah, so Dennis Schroeder to the Raptors, and he gets his bag after performing well with the Lakers. And next we have a couple veterans getting signed. Seth Curry to the Mavericks. The Mavericks, another team along with Luka and Kyrie that needs shooters who can hit open shots. Seth Curry can fit into almost any system just because of ability to do that, to make shots. 40% from three guy I expect this year. I think he'll do well playing along with Kyrie and Luka, even though he does not supply the defense the Mavericks need. Derrick Rose didn't necessarily ring chase. I'm not going to say going to the Grizzlies is ring chasing. 2-year, $6.5 million deal. We know, like I said, Josh suspended first part of the season. He'll probably get a lot of minutes and then they'll be reduced. But that point guard role that that Tyus Jones leaving, backup point guard Tyus Jones leaving the Grizzlies, they'll be looking for Derrick Rose to probably do something similar and be as efficient as he was. Then we had a little bit of a trade. We had Victor Oladipo and some draft compensation. I didn't see what it actually was. Probably second round pick or two. Was traded to the Thunder so the Heat could free up a $9.45 million trade exception. I wonder where they're going to try to use that trade exception. Probably in a deal to get Damian Lillard. So that's a sneaky deal by Pat Riley. The Heat were quiet at the start of free agency, but I think we all know why now. And then as we get deeper into day 2 of free agency, we saw Jackson Hayes sign with the Lakers, and they're hoping he can be the JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard type of thing from 2020 that the Lakers had, because the blueprint for the Lakers winning a championship is AD at the 4 for the regular season, put him at the 5 when it really matters in the playoffs. Hopefully Jackson Hayes can be that 5, and maybe they can go get Mo Bamba after they just waived him, ironically on a cheaper deal, to solidify the center position. Then we had a former Laker, Thomas Bryant, go to the Heat, 2 years, $5.4 million. He will fill the backup center role that Cody Zeller had. Cody Zeller was a bad negative in the finals for the Heat. Thomas Bryant might be a little bit better. We had the infamous Pat Bev join the Philadelphia 76ers along with a fellow troll, Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid and Patrick Beverley are going to cause a lot of fights, hopefully not among each other, but with other teams this season. Although they both may be affected by the new flopping rule that the Board of Governors is voting on that says, hey, if you flop, you can get a technical, so that team will be interesting to watch adjust to those possible rule changes. Then we had a deal that I know Tyrese Halliburton was happy about, because on Twitter he was posting about 5 memes about every signing they made. It was Obi Toppin to the Pacers for 2 second-round picks. Obi never really got some serious, there were stretches, but never some serious playing time with the Knicks. We know how strict Tom Thibodeau is with his rotation, and once you're out of it, you're not getting back in. Tyrese is certainly a guy who will like to throw lobs to Obi. There is room in the rotation for the Pacers to put Obi, so hopefully he can take a step up, because this guy was pretty high coming out of college, coming out of Dayton. I know the tournament kind of ruined him fully showing off his skills to the world, but he's been definitely a little bit disappointing considering where he was drafted. Dylan Brooks, another recipient of the Houston We Just Need to Pay You award. They gave him $20 million a year, 4 years, $80 million. And look, Dylan Brooks, yes, he was getting clowned. We were all telling him to get ready to go play in China and stuff like that. But this guy is a type of player that you probably want on your team. It's an all-defensive level player. You need a lockdown defender to stop all the stars in the offensive firepower in this league. Dylan Brooks can do that. Yes, he's inefficient on offense. Yes, he is joining a team who I've criticized so many times for being inefficient on offense. But maybe, since everyone loves shooting over there, Dylan Brooks finally won't be chucking 12 shots, 6 threes a game like he was in Memphis, especially when Ja was out. And he can just become a strict defender who occasionally maybe shoots 35, 37% on like 2 or 3, maybe 4 3-point attempts a game. Moving on, though, Jalen McDaniel wants the Raptors 2-year, $9.3 million. We saw Jalen move to the 76ers, and he got a couple games where he played some serious play time, followed the rotation by the time the playoffs came and their season ended at the hands of the Celtics. I think he still has a lot of length and the potential to be good. Obviously, he's definitely overshadowed by a guy with a similar name to him, Jaden McDaniels, who's the better defender, but Jalen can certainly be something like that and mold into the player Jaden is like. And then we had another young guy moving with KJ Martin getting traded to the Clippers for 2 second-round picks. The Rockets maybe just feeling like we signed all these guys, not spot in rotation. The Clippers finally get younger. There were rumors of they were ready to move on from Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. We'll see if that pops up back again, whether it be in the offseason or later on in the season. But either way, I think it's a good pickup for the Clippers, and they really need to do get young, because that entire rotation last year was just old, and a young guy can maybe fire him up. And just the last couple of signings here, we have Dante DiVincenzo going to the Knicks, 4 years, $50 million. Something about them Villanova boys that the New York Knicks love. They got Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Dante now, and it's good for Dante because he went to Golden State on a 1-year prove-it deal. He did indeed prove himself. He played really well against the Lakers in the second-round series. So yeah, just a little bit over $12 million a year for him. So I'm sure he'll be enjoying that. And that Knicks team really had some chemistry last year, and I think they could be in contention to win a series or two next season. We had Eric Gordon going to the Suns, which is unfortunate for anybody who's not a Suns fan, because that is a very good pickup. I do think Eric Gordon is regressing a little bit, and he won't be as effective as maybe we think he will. But on the vet minimum, after all this talk of, he might go to the Lakers or another team for the mid-level exception, which is like $12 million, this is a steal for the Suns. This is what happens when players want to ring chase. Great pickup for them. Speaking of guys who, speaking of ring chasing, we have a guy who just won a ring. Jeff Green. He signed with the Rockets 1 year, $6 million. A good veteran for the Rockets staff. Jeff Green is maybe finally getting past those productive points of his career, and I don't know if he'll get much playing time over the young guys, but either way, still a good vet for them to have. And lastly, a sign just happened 1 or 2 hours ago, the time filming this. Lonnie Walker to the Nets, the former Laker. We'll all remember his legendary fourth quarter run against Golden State. Single-handedly won them the game, really, and helped them win the series. The Nets get another young, up-and-coming guard / wing, and they'll be a fun team to watch. And they also are on one of the on the list for the teams Damian Lillard could get traded to. And the Blazers front office has been sure to say, hey, he's not going to the Heat just because he said it. We're listening to everybody, and the Nets have a lot of pieces to possibly do that. But either way, that is everything that has happened. Well, not everything. Everything I can note down that I felt like was important, and there's still, I'm sure, a bunch going on, and there still will be a bunch going on. We still have a couple more dominoes we're waiting to fall, obviously, with Damian Lillard and James Harden, who that trade request is still pending. I think it was Brian Windhorst or either Woj said that there is a possibility still that James Harden is in a Sixer uniform this season, but hopefully, if you like chaos, you are supplied that with the Damon Harden deals. And we'll see where some other players go that are still left, see if any more trades are made. But that is all I have for now. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.